Hi parents, guardians, and students. The following distance learning tutorial video will walk you through how to write an outstanding narrative story. I have promoted and taught a 4-section or 4-paragraph method towards writing a strong narrative. The first paragraph sets the scene for the reader and the characters involved. The audience is then introduced in the second paragraph to the problem, which could be a positive one or a negative one. Third paragraph stretches that problem through a series of events leading into the fourth paragraph, which hopefully takes that problem towards a resolution. Just a reminder that a simple story that is described well is often better than a complex story with too many twists and turns that can confuse the reader. Our co-created graphic writing organizer for narrative writing is available for download on my website. I've suggested strongly to students to review all the success criteria prior to their brainstorming, much as they ought to review all of the success criteria subsequent to the completion of their narrative task. Students are to use pictures and/or words to plan their paragraph in this portion of the organizer, and then use these pictures and words to influence the writing in the lines provided below for all 4 sections or 4 paragraphs required to write a solid narrative. I suggested to students to write the letter D in the draft space above the lines to indicate where they might consider incorporating dialogue into their writing. Remember, the pictures will not be evaluated, nor will the words. This draft space can be filled up with words from the Writer's Toolkit to help inspire the writing down below. They may want to consider strong dialogue tags, transition words, you name it, in this space. I've modeled for students how I typically plan out my writing. I usually use pictures and/or words to first plan out the problem or conflict in the story. Then I go backwards, figuring out a way to lead the reader and audience towards that problem, be it a positive or negative one. Thereafter, I plan out my series of events that take me towards the resolution. Dialogue can prove to be tricky for students, both in presenting unique voices between characters. Dialogue can prove to be tricky for young students, both in terms of providing unique voices for individual characters, as well as the mechanics and punctuation involved. Let's take a look at an anchor chart that's available on my website. A dialogue tag usually precedes what's being said out loud. I've instructed students to try to avoid using the word said too often, as that can be very, very repetitive with the he said, she said, they said voice. Instead, try some unique dialogue tags, which are available on my Writer's Toolkit webpage, as well as through the links provided. Let's take a look at this strong dialogue sample. He replied, "What are you doing?" The lady responded, "Oh, I'm so very sorry. I didn't see you there." What's being said out loud is introduced with a colon, and what's actually being said out loud by a character is wrapped around with talking marks, otherwise known as quotation marks. There may be one sentence or several sentences. As per usual, each complete sentence requires appropriate punctuation within. Most narratives are written in past tense, that is to say that the action in the story has already happened. So you'll notice that ed ending, which typically accompanies past tense verbs, being underscored. So I've suggested to students to try to use the yesterday strategy. Place an imaginary yesterday at the beginning of every sentence that they write. Students are to read their sentences out loud and to check to see if the verb is conjugated properly for past tense. So Johnny Fastball walks to the store. If I incorporate that yesterday strategy, Yesterday, Johnny Fastball walks at the store. Doesn't sound right. Yesterday, Johnny Fastball walked to the store. That would be the correct conjugation. It's pivotal to strike a balance between telling and showing when we write. If we're constantly telling the reader what's going on, he was afraid, she was nervous, it was hot outside, well, our stories can be rather dry. We can create much deeper emotional bonds to characters, to the environment, to the story when we offer up some showing as well. That's to say that when we represent things in a descriptive manner, well, then we can really put ourselves into the character's shoes. For example, if it was hot outside, we could suggest that somebody was sweating, that a heat rash developed on her forehead and she became flushed. Perhaps the reader has experienced that feeling before and can relate. I invite you to take a look at a Level 4 strong work sample available for download on my narrative writing website. Take note of the orientation paragraph, the problem paragraph, the series of events paragraph, and the resolution paragraph. There's dialogue incorporated, transition words, a balance between telling and showing, a well-planned story with an exciting resolution, lots of adverbs such as madly, words that end in ly, fun dialogue tags, none of that he said, she said, words such as screamed are incorporated, and a strong title that really hooks the reader. The reader in this case may be familiar with the fun game, Whack-A-Mole. But in this case here, I've incorporated the letter H to suggest something about a hole in our narrative. And if you take the time to read the strong work sample, you'll see how a little bit of digging and a person hidden beneath a hole dug into a sandpit resembles that of the game Whack-A-Mole. Our narrative writing webpage has our proofreading plan or OPP tutorial video for you to watch in advance and to ensure that every sentence is written in a cogent fashion. Don't forget those 3 steps after every sentence. And lastly, don't forget my Writer's Toolkit webpage. It's a fantastic tool, replete with synonyms, transition words, fun and exciting dialogue tags, a color thesaurus, emotions and feeling emojis to sort of walk you through how to best represent a character's feelings, etc., for you to rely upon. Happy writing!